Hi Willow class, it's Monday morning and it's our maths lesson. We're going to continue working on our unit on division, but today we're going to look at division with remainders, because sometimes when we're dividing our numbers, they don't always fit neatly and nicely into equal groups. So we're going to look at what happens when you sometimes get a number left over. On the screen, you can see hopefully two words, dividend and divisor. They're there just because they're the mathematical language we use. Dividend just means the number that's being divided. In this case, I've got 12 counters on the screen. And then the divisor is the number that you are dividing by. So what we're looking at today is saying to ourselves, what is 12 divided into groups of 4 equal to? Okay, and Hattie last week, she was using marbles actually to help her with division, which is where I got this idea from, to use counters on the screen to help you. So I'm going to try and do it sort of pictorially today, and then you're going to go off and try and do some work in your Power Maths books. So 12 divided by 4. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to move these counters into groups of 4. So I've got one group of 4, I'm going to make another group of 4 and another group of 4. So if we were writing that, we would say 12 divided by 4 equals 3, or 12 divided into groups of 4 is equal to 3. So that's a nice one. That's a nice, easy one to start because there are no remainders. But look what happens when I suddenly change the dividend. Okay, and remember what I said is the dividend is the number that's being divided. So I now have 13 counters on the board. I'm still dividing by 4, but I've got 13 counters. And remember, if you want to stop me at any time or pause me so you can try and figure it out before I show you, then please do. So I'm going to move my counters into groups of 4. So there's one group of 4, another group of 4, another group of 4. But look what happens here. So I have 3 equal groups of 4, but then I have a remainder of 1. Okay? So we write that like it says at the bottom here. 13 divided by 4 equals 3R1. And the R stands for remainder. So 13 divided into groups of 4 is equal to 3 with a remainder of 1. Let's do another couple more. So this time I'm going to change again the dividend, the number the number that is being divided, and I'm now saying to you, what is 14 divided by 4? So let's put them into groups of 4. There's one group, there's another group, there's another group, and then I have 2 remainders this time. So we would write that 14 divided by 4 equals 3 remainder 2. So 14 divided into groups of 4 is equal to 3 with a remainder of 2. Now I'm going to change it again. I'm going to make the dividend 15. So now I'm asking you, what is 15 divided by 4? And some of you may be seeing a pattern here and might even be able to just shout out the answer at me. What is 15 divided by 4? So let me show you. I'm going to move these counters into groups of 4. There's one group, 2 groups, 3 groups. And how many have I got remaining this time? 3. Well done if you got that. So 15 divided by 4 equals 3 remainder 3. So 15 divided into groups of 4 is equal to 3 with a remainder of 3. Okay, should we do another one? And look here, I've changed my dividend to 16. Okay, So let's put them into groups of 4 and see what happens. 1 group of 4, 2 groups of 4, 3 groups of 4, 4 groups of 4. Now, this is where I would be tricking you or trying to trick you in class, because I've circled 3 of those groups of 4. Is that correct or not? So would I write it like this? 16 divided by 4 equals 3 remainder 4. Is that right? No, of course it's not right. The remainder can't be equal to 4 because we can make another group of 4. 16 divided into groups of 4 is 4. So always make sure, if you can, that you put them into the groups. You won't necessarily always have a remainder. Power Maths will deliberately try and trick you sometimes. So let's do one more with these counters, I think. So we now have 17 counters. 17 counters. And I've put up there 17 divided by 5 equals 2 remainder 7. And my question to you this morning, is that correct? Is 17 divided by 5 2 remainder 7? And as I said, if you want to pause me and try and work that out, please do so. So what I'm going to do now is I am going to show you. Is it correct? There's 1 group of 5, 2 groups of 5, 3 groups of 5, remainder. No, it's not 2 remainder 7. It is, and let's see if you've got it, 3 remainder 2. 17 divided by 5 can't be 2 remainder 7 because 7 is greater than 5 and the remainder should be less than the divisor. So therefore we can make another group of 5. If you want to pause me and go back over that step, please do so. Let's move on to some actual word problems, because this is when it gets quite fun, I always think. And this is what the Power Maths book will probably start moving on to. Well, not probably, it will start moving on to, because it will get you to do some word problems. So 23 apples are shared equally between 4 children. How many apples does each child get? How many apples are left over? Can you work that out? 23 apples are shared equally between 4 children. How many apples does each child get? How many apples are left over? And let's have a look. Let's see. So we're dividing these apples up. So each child is getting the same number. So what is the answer? 23 divided by 4, and you can count the apples, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So each child gets 5 apples, and then there are 3 left over. And just remember, the 23 is representing the total number of apples. The 4 is representing the number of children the apples are shared between. The 5 represents the equal number of apples that each child gets, and the 3 represents the number of apples left over. So the children get 5 apples each, and there are 3 apples left over. Should we do another one? Right. 4 scouts, and I know some of you are in the scouting world, beavers and cubs. 4 scouts can fit in each tent. How many tents needed for 30 scouts? So how many tents would you need if 4 scouts can fit in each tent and there are 30 scouts all together? And if you want to try and have a go at doing this, please feel free. So let's see if I can move these people. There's one tent with 4 in. The next tent with 4 in. Next tent. We've got 4 tents so far. 5 tents needed. 6 tents needed. 7 tents needed. So 30 divided by 4 equals 7, remainder 2. But we can't leave these 2 people out in the cold, can we? So we need to make sure they have a tent too. So how many tents are going to be needed overall? 8 tents are going to be needed, because you're going to need a tent for the 2 leftover scouts. And the 30 here represents the total number of scouts. The 4 represents the number of scouts in each tent. The 7 represents the number of full tents. And the 2 represents the number of scouts left over. Right. Let's do one more. My favourite topic, biscuits and food. And it says how many... sorry, it doesn't. It says 34 biscuits on plates of 6. How many full plates will there be? So again, you've got to imagine that you're going to move these biscuits into groups of 6. So there's one plate of 6, another plate of 6, another plate of 6, another plate of 6, another plate of 6. And then how many left over? 4. So 34 divided by 6 equals 5, remainder 4. And this question asked you how many full plates there would be. So there would be 5 full plates. The 34 representing the total number of biscuits here, the 6 representing the number of biscuits on each plate, the 5 representing the number of plates of biscuits, and the 4 representing the number of biscuits left over. I hope that makes sense, Willow class. What I'm going to do now is I am going to show you what that looks like in the Power Maths books. And if you want to have a go, if you turn to page 33 in the Power Maths books 3B, and I'm thinking if you can to try and do pages 33, 34 and 35. I actually have, this is the first question, so I was going to do the first question with you today, because I know sometimes the Power Maths books and the layout of the Power Maths books can be a little bit confusing, so I thought we'd do this one together. But it's based on that same principle that I've been talking about, that sometimes numbers don't divide equally into groups, so you get remainders. I still think using the part-whole method is quite a nice way of dividing, and Power Maths have used that again today. So you can see over here, this first question, there are 45 tins of peas. The tins are stacked on 2 shelves. And it says a shopkeeper wants to put the same number of tins on each shelf. How many tins can go on each shelf? And we've got the part-whole model, and then we've got the Deans below. And the first question is, what is 40 divided by 2? And you can imagine just splitting these Deans, and I'm going to try and do it really carefully, into 2 equal groups, and they would each get, I hope you're shouting out the answer for me, 40 divided by 2 would be 20. Well done. And then you have the ones to look at. So you're doing exactly the same thing. You're dividing them by 2. So you've got 5 ones divided by 2. And this time, when you put them into equal groups, hopefully you can see this, you get 2 remainder 1. So therefore, overall, 45 divided by 2, and you have to add these numbers together. So 20 plus 2 is 22, remainder 1. So then the last bit says, how many tins go on each shelf? And remember, the shopkeeper wants to put the same number of tins on each shelf. So 22 tins go on each shelf. And then it says, how many tins cannot be put on the shelf? And the remainder is 1. So 1 tin cannot be put on the shelf. Have a go, Willow class. As I said, pages 33, 34 and 35. It does get, as always, slightly trickier, so just do what you can. Thanks for listening, Willow class, and it's really good to see your work when it's handed in, so keep it coming. Thank you. Bye.